All right, good morning. We'll get started today on our backs. Let's start with the soles of the feet on the mat. So bring the feet out wide to the outer edges of the mat and let the knees fall together. So knees are touching, feet are wide. And you're resting the head on the mat, back is on the mat. You should feel the back of the hips are definitely on the mat and the upper back is on the mat, shoulders. And then reach the arms all the way up to the sky. So the palms are facing away from you. And then cross the right arm in front of the left arm. So you're crossing as high up as you can. So you can start with the elbows. And then if you can go a little bit further, cross there. And it's going to take space away from the chest. Don't worry, we're going somewhere. And then you're going to turn the hands around so the palms face down toward the ground. And then wrap the fingertips underneath you. So it's like you're giving yourself the tightest hug. And maybe it's, you're wrapping your arms around you and you're not really touching much. That's fine. Some of you might be able to wiggle the fingers so far in that you can actually grab the shoulder blades. And we want those elbows down, so away from the face. So press them down toward the torso and then pull the shoulder blades apart. And what you're doing is creating a lot of space in the upper back at the same time as giving yourself a big hug. Close the eyes, take a big breath in through the nose and exhale out of the mouth, let it go. 2 more like this. Big breath in through the nose, fill all the way up. Exhale, let it go. Last one, big breath in. Exhale out of the mouth, let it go. This time, breathe in through the nose, back out through the nose, slowly letting the air go. Keep going with this breath. In through the nose, slowly back out. Listening to the sound of your breath, so you should be able to hear it. And if someone was right next to you, they should be able to hear it too. But someone across the room should not be able to hear it. That would dry out the back of the throat. So you're trying to find that balance. And maybe you're starting to feel a little bit more space across the shoulder blades, upper back area. All right, reach the arms all the way back up. That's already a different experience. Bring the left arm in front of the right arm and see how far you can cross the arms first. Then turn those palms down to face toward the ground. And now start to wrap the hands underneath you. So elbows away from the face. For some of us, the elbows want to come right on top of the face. Move the elbows down. And you are smashing yourself down on the chest a little bit. Keep staying with that same breath we started with, in through the nose, back out through the nose. And eyes are closed, but if you want to keep them softly open, that's fine too. Just look down so they're not all the way open. We use this time starting out in our practice, landing on our mats, to take away distraction. So you're all coming from something you were doing before. We're slowly trying to let that go so that we can be fully present on our mat, so that we can focus on our practice, taking a break from everything else. And that's a strong part of our practice, is finding that place where we can just drop in to our zone. And as you listen to the sound of the breath, that's kind of this, it is the soundtrack of your practice. To be a calming and soothing noise for you. One that you can make anytime you need it. All right, reach the arms all the way back up. Now reach the arms overhead and stretch the legs out in front of you and get really long on your mat. Feeling how different the shoulders feel. And then hug the knees in toward the chest. You can rock side to side a little bit. And you'll roll over to one side. Use the hands to bring yourself up to seated. And let's start with an easy cross-legged seat. So crossing at mid shin if you can. If it's wider, that's fine. Move side to side until you feel even on the sit bones. And on the inhale, reach the arms all the way up. And on the exhale, bring the hands down in front of you. So coming into a hip opening, take it easy with this first one. It's our first hip opening of the day. So you're not trying to go all the way in and get your deepest hip opening. It's just a nice way to get the hips ready for your practice. And if you have blocks, you can always use blocks underneath the hands, maybe underneath the forehead, and you can skip them all together. They're just, if you have them, you just use them to fill any spaces between you and the mat. You'll start to walk the hands back in, coming back up to seated. Turn the chest to the left. Really light twist here. So go 3/4 of the way in. Back of the right hand could maybe rest on this left thigh. Sit up as tall as you can first. And then remember, you're using the core to twist the spine. You're not jamming that right hand into the leg to push you into it deeper. It's just there for support. So not a gas pedal. And twist is one of those movements that we can definitely go too far too soon. So that's why you want to take it really easy for the first one. And then as the spine warms up, we can always go a little deeper later on. All right, slowly unwind, lean back. So bring the hands back behind you, switch the crossing of the legs, bringing the other shin in front. And maybe you shift side to side a little bit, finding even on the sit bones. Reach the arms all the way up and fold forward. Back into that hip opening, but now you're on the other hip, which could be a different story. So listen to it. Maybe it's tighter, maybe it's more open. Likely the tighter hip was the first, was this one, only because I didn't tell you which one to do first, and we tend to go to the easier one first. Walk the hands back in, coming back up to seated. Turn the chest to the right. Come up onto the fingertips so you can sit up as tall as you can, and then place the back of the left hand on the right thigh, just there for support. Lift up as tall as you can, and then a really gentle twist. No more than 75% in, maybe even less. Just until you start to feel the spine twisting. And then see how long you can get from the hips all the way up through the crown of the head. Belly hugs in a little bit. And sometimes it's nice to think about the core muscles revolving around so that that's what's helping you twist more than anything else. Slowly unwind, come back to center, hands and knees, tabletop. So coming to all fours. And we'll set up for a few rounds of cat-cow. If you want to turn the hands around and get into the wrists and the forearms, you're welcome to. So the hands can turn out to the sides. And for a deeper variation, you could turn the hands all the way around so the fingertips point toward the knees. And if none of those are working, you can do one hand forward, one hand back. And that works too. I'll tell you when we're halfway so you can switch. On the inhale, reach the heart forward, hug the belly in. And on the exhale, round the whole spine, chin in toward the chest. Keep going on your own, inhaling forward, exhaling back. So you're going at your own pace. Eyes could be closed if that helps you stay inside and feel how this is working through the body as you warm up the spine. And you're trying to use the entire spine. So especially on the rounding for your cat back, see if you can get the rounding down to the lower back. And as you arch forward, a little hugging into the belly to protect the lower back. And we're about halfway. So if you're doing one hand forward, one hand back, switch them. Keep going with your cat cow. Fingers are spread evenly and you're pressing down into the whole hand. So try not to let the knuckles come up away from the mat. One more forward and back. Take your time with it. And you'll come back to a neutral spine. Turn the hands so that they face forward and bring the forearms down to the mat. Walk the elbows forward ahead of the shoulders, and you might start to feel a pretty deep opening across the chest and the upper body. Forehead maybe comes down to the mat. Hips stay over the knees. So they want to shift forward with you. Keep them stacked over the knees so you can really focus on opening up the upper body. Hug the belly in a tiny bit so you don't dip down into the lower back. And if you feel any kind of tingling sensation in the forearms, hands, arms, widen the arms until that goes away. So this is puppy dog anahatasana in Sanskrit. All right, start to lift the gaze, walk the elbows back in. So now you're stacking the shoulders right over the elbows, hands and forearms are shoulder width distance apart. Press, and you spread the fingers evenly. So press down into the hands and the forearms, step the feet back behind you. You're coming into a forearm plank. So you're squeezing those inner thighs like you're trying to, if you had a block between the thighs, like you're trying to spin the block up toward the sky. That's the rotation. Hug the belly in. It's almost like you're trying to reach it forward along with the heart. And you keep pulling those heels back, pressing down into the hands and the forearms as you try to reach the chest forward through the gateway of the arms. Still with that same breath. Breathing in through the nose, back out through the nose. And here's where you really drop into the zone. So you're breathing with your Ujjayi breath. You're feeling every muscle in the body work. And you're just here in this forearm plank, trying to keep yourself steady and calm, even though you're building heat. Slowly set the hips down onto the mat, tops of the feet to the mat. Lift the chest, push the heart through the arms. So now we're in Sphinx pose. Tops of the feet press down to keep the legs active. Belly moves away from the mat to protect the lower back. And those bottom tips of the shoulder blades keep pushing the chest forward. And the shoulders widen across the front body and the back body. Look down the bridge of the nose to create more space in the back of the neck. So you're in a back bend, which is energizing. So is that forearm plank. So your heart might be beating a little bit. It's about where you should be. Then tuck the toes underneath you, fire up the legs, the core, press yourself back to that forearm plank, pushing down into the mat with the forearms and the hands. See if you can get a little bit more length. And then one hand at a time, plank pose. Downward facing dog. So push the hips up and back. And this should feel pretty nice in the upper body, given the work we just did. So first, downward facing dog. If you want to lift one heel, descend the other, you can go back and forth with that, pedaling out the feet. Then from here, look forward at the mat or at the hands. Step the right foot through up between the hands, coming into a runner's lunge. That back knee will come down. Up to you if you tuck the back toes or if you bring the top of the foot to the mat. Bring the hands up to this front thigh. Push the thigh away from you, lifting the chest, starting to get into the top of the left hip here. And then reach the arms forward, palms facing up. Bring the left arm on top of the right arm. And you can either grab the shoulders and bring the elbows down and do that hug thing that we were doing on our back to start, or you can take eagle arms if the shoulders feel open enough. So backs of the forearms together. Maybe some of you hook the right fingertips inside of the left hand. Elbows right in front of the shoulders, hands right over the elbows, digging into that right heel like you're going to slide it back so you have your stability. And if you're feeling pretty open, you could start to lift the forearms, maybe the gaze too, only if it feels like you're getting some nice space across the upper back. And if you lifted the forearms, bring the elbows back down, hands back down to the mat, tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, straighten the front leg, fold over the front leg. So this is a pretty deep opening for the back side of the right leg. If it feels way too intense, you walk the hands back, so more underneath the shoulders. And if you're not feeling anything, then walk the hands forward and that intensifies things. So it's a nice thing to know about this pose, how you can adjust it so that you find a nice therapeutic opening in your body. Let the head and the neck go as you fold over. This is a modified pyramid pose. Then inhale forward to a lunge, plant the hands, step back to downward facing dog. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Left foot steps up between the hands. Set that back knee down. One hand at a time up to this front thigh. Push the thigh away from you, lifting the chest and feeling a nice opening on the right side of the hip, thigh, whole area. Reach the arms forward, palms facing up. This time, right arm on top of left. Either grab the tops of the shoulders and just pull them apart, elbows down, or a version of eagle arms, Garudasana. Backs of the forearms can be together, or maybe that left forefingers come inside of the right palm. Hands over the elbows, shoulders move away from the ears wherever you are. And then if you did it on the first side, maybe you play with lifting the forearms up. So we've done a lot of shoulder opening already. Just listen to your body, see where it needs this pose to be. Then you stay there and breathe. And this is also pretty challenging for our balance. So if you feel wobbly, dig into that left heel, slide it. It's like you're trying to slide it in toward the body. So you get a little scissoring of the inner thighs. Then release the arms down to the mat. Tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, straighten the front leg, adjust where you have the hands to make this right where you need it, getting into the back side of the left leg. Let the head and the neck go. High on the ball, the back foot, so that right heel still lifted, which you could probably see really easily. Inhale forward to your lunge. Bring the hands to the mat. Step back to downward facing dog. Feeling now the lower body a little bit more open. Upper body's definitely becoming more open. Hug the belly in. And then bend the knees. Look forward to the top of the mat. Start to take a lot of steps. So baby steps to walk the feet forward, real small, until you end up in a forward fold at the top of the mat. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Two more like that. Inhale up halfway. Hands can slide up the sides of the legs. Exhale, fold. Last one. Inhale up. Reach the heart forward. And exhale, fold back down over the legs. This time, inhale, circle the arms all the way up to standing. Bring the hands together overhead and down in front of the heart. Surya A, inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold all the way down. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, hands to the mat. Bend the knees as much as you need to get the hands down to the mat. Step back to plank pose. Lower all the way down to the mat slowly with control. Knees can always help you get there. Tops of the feet to the mat. Walk the hands back. Cobra, Bhujangasana. Elbows hug in. Exhale, release. Tuck the toes, either hands and knees to get to downward facing dog, or fire it up. Take it back up to plank pose and hips up and back, downward facing dog. Couple of breaths here in your downward facing dog. Make sure you can't see the heels. They're hiding behind the balls of the feet. And that helps you broaden the backs of the thighs and maybe lift the hips up a little bit more as you let the heels come down toward the mat. Bend the knees, look forward, step, walk, bring the feet up between the hands, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together overhead, down in front of the heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, hands to the mat, bend the knees, step back to plank pose, lower down halfway chaturanga, cobra or up dog if you feel ready for it. Exhale back, downward facing dog. Bend the knees, look forward to the top of the mat, lightly bring the feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, circle the arms all the way up to standing. Bring the palms together, down in front of the heart. One more. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhaling up halfway. Exhale, fold, hands to the mat, step back to plank pose, lower down halfway chaturanga. Inhale up for your back bend, reach that heart through, exhale back, downward facing dog. Right foot steps up between the hands, runner's lunge. So if the foot doesn't make it all the way up, you get as far as you can, you grab the ankle and you bring it all the way through. That's the quickest way to get there. Feet are hip width distance apart. If they're too narrow, you'll lose your stability. Press down into the feet a lot. See if you can float the fingertips away from the mat. So you're staying pretty low and fingertips are just hovering away from the mat. And then dig down into the feet and the legs, reach the arms forward and all the way up, coming into your crescent pose. So when we break that down and come into it a whole lot slower, like we just did, you feel all the strength you need to get into it. It also gives you time to gather the stability that you need. And then from here, bring the arms forward, palms facing up. Bring the left arm on top of the right arm, some version of eagle arms. Shoulders, grab the shoulders or backs of the forearms together, or maybe you hook the right hand inside of the left. Maybe the forearms lift up if you have the forearms together. Don't lose the strength of the back leg. Then bring the elbows back in line with the shoulders, arms down by the sides, circle the arms all the way back up, crescent pose. Hands come down to the mat, hop the back foot in, setting up for warrior one. So those left toes point toward 11 o'clock. Reach the arms forward and all the way up, warrior one. Straighten the front leg. Make fists with the hands and bring the hands behind the back. So those fists are touching. And then you open up across the shoulders. So it's like you're pushing the elbows back. Press down into both feet. Both legs are straight. So press down into the feet and the legs. Lift up through the upper body. Just come forward halfway. Maybe not even halfway. So here's where we listen to the lower back. We want to feel an arch in the lower back. As soon as it starts to round, you've gone too far. So play with that. It's probably not even halfway. You probably go like whatever it is. Just listen to what your body's telling you as your guide. Shoulders move away from the ears. Legs are working. Then press yourself back up to standing, straight legs, arms down by the sides, bend that front knee, reach the arms up, back to warrior one. Back leg is really strong. So you're spinning that inner left thigh back behind you. Keep some work there. And then exhale, hands come down to the mat. Step back to plank pose. You can go to downward facing dog. If you want a vinyasa, take it. This is where you customize your practice and make it what you need it to be. So sometimes vinyasas can be energizing and sometimes they can be draining. So that's the choice. Left foot steps up between the hands. Feet hip width distance apart. Stay high on the ball of the back foot. Start to float the fingertips away from the mat. Keeping the chest low. Dig down into the feet and the legs. Reach the arms forward and all the way up. Crescent pose. So that back leg is strong. So is the front leg. Reach the arms forward, palms facing up. Right arm on top of the left. Some version of eagle arms. Maybe you lift the forearms. Listening to the upper back. Elbows come back in line with the shoulders. Bring the arms down by the sides. Circle the arms all the way back up, crescent pose. Hands come down to the mat. Hop that back foot in, seal the heel down, back up warrior one. Front leg still bent. Just that right heel's down this time and toes turned out at an angle. And then straighten the front leg, make fists with the hands, fists behind the back, open up across the chest, push those elbows back, keeping the fists connected. Legs are straight, fold forward, keep that arch in the lower back, leading with the heart. No lower than halfway, probably a lot higher than halfway. Shoulders continue to move away from the ears as you push the elbows away from the mat. Left hip pulls back a little bit, right hip goes forward a little bit. Press yourself back up to standing. Bring the arms down by the sides, warrior one. Bend that front knee, reach the arms all the way up. And there's a little bit of a back bend here. So you can hug the belly in, reach the heart up. Maybe the gaze goes up and exhale. Hands come down to the mat, step back to plank pose. Any way you want, back to downward facing dog. Choose to take or skip the vinyasa. Start to bend the knees, look forward to the top of the mat, walk, step, hop, bring the feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. On your next inhale, come into chair pose, bend the knees, reach the arms up. Utkatasana, weight in the heels. You should be able to see all 10 toes. Pull the hips and knees back if you can't. And then reach the heart forward, up, take the gaze with you. All the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. Inhale, sit back, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, hands to the mat, step back to plank pose. Any way you want, back to downward facing dog. Modified vinyasas are also okay. So if you have modifications that work for you, take them. Right foot steps up between the hands. Feet hip width distance apart, crescent pose. You go as slow as you want to. Build that strength and stability. It's not about going up fast. That's using momentum. Then reach the arms forward, palms facing up, left elbow on top of right. Hook the hands, maybe if you're taking that full eagle variation. Reach the arms up, the forearms up. Maybe the gaze goes with it. Then bring the elbows back in line with the shoulders, arms down by the sides, circle the arms back up to crescent pose. Hands come down to the mat, hop that back foot forward, seal the heel, warrior one. Straighten the front leg. This time, reach the arms back behind you. You can either do reverse fists like we did before. If the shoulders feel open, you could clasp opposite elbows. See if that works. And if you clasp opposite elbows, figure out which forearm's on top right now. We'll have to switch sides on the other side. Push those elbows back, come forward halfway or less. Listen to the lower back. Right hip pulls back, left hip goes forward. Keep that heat building in the legs. Back up to standing. Arms down by the sides, warrior one. Bend that front knee, reach the heart up. Maybe the gaze goes with it. Spin that left inner thigh back behind you, helping to square the hips. Then set the hands back down to the mat, back to plank pose, get to downward facing dog, using your own breath as your guide. Left foot steps up between the hands, feet hip width, crescent pose. Arms forward, palms up, right arm on top of left arm, eagle arms. Maybe the elbows and forearms lift. Bring the forearms back down if you lifted them. Arms down by the sides, circle the arms all the way back up. Hands come down to the mat, hop that back foot in, warrior one, rise back up. This time that back leg is super straight, spinning that right inner thigh back behind you. Straighten the front leg, reverse fists or clasp opposite elbows, bringing the other forearm on top. Keep the chest nice and open, shoulders away from the ears. Fold forward halfway. Listen to the lower back, keep it arching. Reaching the heart forward. Left hip goes back, right hip goes forward till they feel like they're side by side, and you find that scissoring of the legs here. Press yourself back up to standing. Keep the arm variation until the head's over the hips. Then reach the arms down by the sides, bend that front knee, reach the arms all the way back up. Virabhadrasana 1. And exhale, hands down to the mat, step back to plank pose, work your way through a vinyasa if you want one. Bend the knees, look forward to the top of the mat, step, walk, hop, bring the feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold, chair pose. This chair pose, lower the hips and lift the chest. Lower the hips even lower and lift the chest. One more time, lower the hips lower, lift the chest. See if you can set the hips down on the mat without using the hands, coming into Navasana, boat pose. It's never that graceful, so don't worry about it if plopping happens. So reaching the arms forward, lift the chest. You want a straight, long spine. So you're making this V shape with the spine and the legs. So legs can be bent. Some of you might be comfortable straightening the legs. Just listen to the hip flexors. If it's going to strain you at all, just come back to bent legs. Lower down, Ardha Navasana. So you're reaching the arms forward and then come back, Navasana. So you're still reaching the arms forward. That energy is still going forward. Lower down, Ardha Navasana, Navasana, come back up. You can always use the hands on the ground too for support, or hands to the backs of the thighs. Ardha Navasana, keep squeezing the thighs, Navasana. One more, Ardha, Navasana. This time a little different, Ardha Navasana, and then lie all the way down onto the mat. Hug the knees in toward the chest. You can rock side to side a little bit. Let's take some rocks on the spine. So grab onto the backs of the thighs and start to rock up and down the spine. If you know rocking doesn't work for you, you can skip it. And we're all going to come back to chair pose. So if you're rocking, see if you can get enough momentum with the core to bring yourself back to chair pose, maybe not using the hands or as lightly as possible. Good. Come all the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. Woo, let's take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, let it go. Inhale, chair pose. Sit back, Utkatasana. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, hands to the mat, step back to plank pose. Vinyasa if you want it. What's nice is notice how much the core helps you once it's heated. You can hug it in a little bit more for your back bend, get those shoulders back, and then take it back to downward facing dog. Right foot steps up between the hands, feet hip width distance apart. Bring it up to crescent pose. Strong in both legs, pretty even in the weight in both legs. Reach the arms forward, palms facing up. Bring the left elbow on top of the right. Eagle arms, lift the forearms. This time, bring the elbows back in line with the shoulders. Start to lean forward. Keep your eagle arms. And then reach the forearms forward. You'll feel a nice opening across the upper back. Start to shift the weight forward to the right foot. Warrior 3 with eagle arms. So just keep reaching forward with that, with the forearms, and press out through the left heel to keep that left leg strong. Eagle. Slowly bend that right knee, cross the left leg, high up over the right leg. Keep the chest lifted, squeeze everything together. So thighs squeeze together, shoulders move away from the ears, core's hugging in tight. And then come up to standing, reach that left leg forward, reach the arms up, straightening the legs. Standing splits, go slow. Reach that left leg back. Hands will eventually come down to the mat. Try not to open the left hip. And then step that left foot way back. Runner's lunge. Hop the back foot in. Warrior 1. Reach the arms up. Square everything forward. Straighten the front leg. Arms back behind you. So reverse fists. Deeper is clasping opposite elbows. Even deeper than that is reverse prayer. So you could play with that. See if that's happening. You turn the fingertips up toward the shoulder blades. Push the elbows back no matter where you are. Come forward. Listen to the lower back. Legs straight. Chest open. Slowly back up to center. Arms down by the sides, warrior 1. Bend that front knee, reach the arms up, find a little bit of a back bend here that you're comfortable with. And exhale, hands come down to the mat, step back to plank pose, work your way back, downward facing dog. Other side, left foot steps up between the hands, feet hip width distance apart. Bring it up to crescent when you're ready. Arms reach forward, left elbow on top of right, eagle arms. Lift the forearms, get a little bit of a upper back opening. And then elbows down in line with the shoulders, start to lean forward. You're still reaching the chest forward and those forearms are reaching forward. Outer left hip has to hug in a little bit. And then you start to shift the weight forward, keep some energy in that right foot as you come to warrior 3, reaching the forearms forward. Inner right thighs lifting. Slow and controlled, eagle. Start to bend that left leg a little bit, cross the right thigh high up over the left, lift the forearms, squeeze those thighs together, and stay upright with the chest. You're hugging the core in. And then we're coming up to standing. Right leg extends out in front of you, arms reach up to the sky. Standing splits. Go slow. Right foot hovers over the mat as you go back. Hands come down to the mat. Lift that right leg from the inner right thigh. Then reach that right foot way back. Hop the back foot in. Warrior one. Straighten the front leg. Take an arm variation behind the back, reverse fist, or clasp opposite elbows the other way, or maybe reverse prayer. Legs straight, leading with the heart. Come forward halfway. Keep pulling that left hip back, right hip forward a little bit, pressing down into the big toe mound of that left foot. Slowly bring yourself back up to standing straight legs, hands behind the back, arms down by the sides. Bend that left knee, reach the arms up, warrior one, little bit of a back bend, hug the belly in, reach the heart up, maybe the gaze two. And exhale, hands come down to the mat, step back to plank pose, work your way through a vinyasa if you want one. Few breaths in downward facing dog. Trying to widen across the shoulder blades in your downward facing dog. So the arms squeeze in toward one another and the shoulder blades widen across the back, but you still press down a whole lot with the index finger and thumb side of the hand. Lowest front ribs hug in. Then bend the knees, look forward to the top of the mat, step, walk, feet up between the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Chair pose. Bend the knees, sit back, Utkatasana. Press all the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. So bring the hands to the hips, step this left foot back like 2/3 of the way. So you want to keep the whole sole of the foot down. So that heel sealed. And it's the same toe variation that we've been playing with. So the left toes are pointing toward 11 o'clock. Square the hips forward. You can use the hands to bring the hip bones straight forward. And then from here, reach the arms all the way up. Start to hinge forward like we've been doing. So right hip pulls back, left hip comes forward. And you're not even going halfway. You're listening to that arch in the lower back. But this time, left arm comes down, right arm reaches up. So we're coming into a twisted triangle. You can bring the fingertips down to the mat or a block right underneath the shoulder. If you want more, it can go to the ankle. And more than that, outside of the ankle. Blocks are really good for this one. Keep it up a little bit higher if you don't have a block. Spread the arms out wide so your shoulders are pretty open, which is necessary for this pose. And this leg variation is definitely familiar at this point. Then look down at the mat, bring the hands down to the mat, just fold over the right leg. So finally, Parsvottanasana, full pyramid pose. Let the head and the neck go. And same thing with the hands that we talked about earlier. Hands forward makes this way more intense. Hands back underneath you makes it less intense. So figure out your hand placement. Keep pulling that right hip back, left hip forward. And then toes should be relaxed. So if they're gripping the mat, see if you can use the soles of the feet a little bit more instead of the toes. Then look forward, put a little bend in that right knee, step the left foot to meet the right foot. Forward fold, top of the mat. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees, Utkatasana chair pose. Press up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. Other side, and then we'll cool down. Hands to the hips, step the right foot back 2/3 of the way. Make sure those toes are at a good angle, the right toes toward 1 o'clock-ish. Square the hips forward. and then reach the arms all the way up. So here, legs are going down toward the mat, feet are going through the floor. You reach up from the waist and the upper body. Keep that division as you start to lean forward, maybe halfway. Right arm comes down, left arm reaches up, open the chest to the left, keep that energy in the legs. Maybe you look down, bring the fingertips to a block, the mat right underneath the shoulder or the ankle or outside the foot. You'll feel the difference between the three options. It definitely gets more intense the more you go to the left with the hand. Keep the legs strong. So as you drive down through the legs, that helps you lengthen the spine. Really nice. Look back down at the mat, bring both hands down to the mat on either side of that front foot. Fold over that left leg. Let the head and the neck go. Get some length in the spine as you fold over the left leg. Relax the toes if they're gripping. But make sure you're still pressing down into the big toe mound of that front foot, pulling that left hip back. Inhale up halfway. Put a little bend in that left knee. Step that right foot forward. Inhale up halfway, Ardha Uttanasana. Then exhale, hands to the mat. Last vinyasa if you want it on the way to downward facing dog. Otherwise, skip it and we'll meet there. From downward facing dog, take child's pose. Big toes together, knees down to the mat, sit the hips back. Keep the arms out in front of you for this one. Feeling an opening across the chest and the shoulders. We want to keep that going. Then shift back onto hands and knees. So knees are hip width distance apart, feet are directly behind the knees. Keep the hips right over the knees. We're going to play with that same back bend that we started with, but we'll go a little bit deeper. So forearms come down to the mat. Walk the elbows ahead of the shoulders. So remember how open you are now. Bring the forehead down to the mat. Hug the belly in a little bit, hips still over the knees. So if you want to take it, you're welcome to stay here. If you feel like you have enough space and freedom in the upper body, you want to take it further, hands can come together like prayer and back behind the head. And if that's going okay, you can start to walk the elbows a little bit farther forward, and it'll give you some more length in the sides of the torso. Make sure you hug the belly in so you don't dip down into the lower back. And stay with your Ujjayi breath, sending that breath to all the areas that you're opening up right now. So the upper body, chest, shoulders, even the tops of the arms. If you have the hands back behind the head, bring them back down in front of you and set the palms down onto the mat. Lift the head, walk the elbows back, everyone, so they're right underneath the shoulders. And then bring the hands underneath you so they're underneath the shoulders. Move the feet to one side, come to seated on the mat. So legs extended out in front of you. We'll bring this right foot in. And we'll take, so lots of options. You can stay like this. Some of you might be okay with stepping the right foot on the other side of the left leg. And then some of you might be okay with bending this left leg and bringing that to the side. Just make sure that you can still keep the whole sole of the right foot down and that you can stay seated on both sit bones. So if you're leaning way over to the left, then maybe you just bring that left leg forward and then you're even on the sit bones. So either one of those. All right. So from here, open the chest to the right, right fingertips back behind you. So now you can take this twist pretty deep. Your spine's warm, you're warm. You can hook the elbow outside of the right thigh, but remember the gas isn't coming from the elbow and the right thigh. It's coming from the core twisting. Look over the right shoulder, sit up as tall as you can, press down to those sit bones to get as much length as you can. Then start to bring the gaze back forward. Slowly unwind. So whatever leg variation you have is where you want to stay. If you can deepen it though and grab this outer right ankle and bring it off to this side. So if the leg is bent, the knees are more stacked. If this bottom leg is forward, that's fine. The knees are probably still more stacked. Hips are even on the mat. Reach the arms all the way up and you fold forward. So now we're coming into a hip opening with that right leg crossed on top of the left. And it doesn't have to be crossed. If your knees are speaking to you, we want them to be quiet. So you can always separate the legs and skip the crossing of the knees altogether. Let the head and the neck go. If that right knee is right there, some of you can hook the chin over the right knee, and that might be a nice place for you to rest. Close the eyes. And you'll start to walk the hands back in, coming back up to seated. Bring the hands back behind you. Extend the bottom leg first, if that's bent, and then the top leg. And we'll slowly move over to the other side. So this left foot comes in. Maybe the left foot steps over the right leg. Right leg can stay extended out in front of you. Notice how you can sit even on both sit bones, or play with bending the right leg. See if you can still stay even on both sit bones and press down into the whole sole of that left foot. That's a tricky part. Left hand comes back behind you, sit up really tall. Maybe you hook the elbow and you start to come into your twist. Lengthen on the inhale, twist on the exhale. The core is what's helping you twist. The elbow and the arm are just there for support. Start to bring the gaze back forward. Keep the body in the twist. Slowly unwind the torso. Probably keeping the same leg variation that you have. Maybe you grab onto the outer edge of this left ankle. See if it has any more room to go off to the right. Knees a little bit more stacked, hips even on the mat. Reach the arms all the way up on the inhale. Fold forward on the exhale. So that bottom leg is either bent or extended out in front of you. And you don't have to cross the knees if that's bothering you at all. Close the eyes. Start to settle in. Maybe you hook the chin if you're down low enough. Not necessary though if it's far away. So Gomukhasana legs. Start to bring yourself back up. Use the hands. Bring the hands back behind you and extend the bottom leg first, then the top leg. Legs out in front of you. Reach the arms all the way up and fold forward over the legs, Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. So you want the hands to rest down on something. It could be the legs, the mat, the feet, if they're right there. But if you're using the shoulders to reach the arms forward, then skip the feet altogether. Let the head and the neck go. And one other thing about the hips, if you feel like the hips are shifting back behind you, you want to keep them underneath you. That's especially important if you have any sciatica conditions. That can aggravate it if the hips are shifting back in this pose. Also, propping yourself up on a block, the hips on a block, is a nice way to combat that too. And you'll slowly come back up to seated. Come on down onto your backs. Let's take a happy baby before we close. We didn't do a whole lot of external hip opening. So open up the knees wide. You can grab on either to the backs of the thighs, backs of the calves, ankles, outer edges of the feet, or inner edges of the feet. But keep the hips going down toward the mat. Pull back on whatever you have, and the head and the chest, or the head and the shoulders, are still on the mat. Chest is open. You're welcome to rock side to side. We also did a lot of leg lengthening. So if it feels like you want to extend one leg, that might be kind of nice. And then the other. Come back to center with your happy baby. Hug the knees in toward the chest. Maybe the nose comes up toward the knees. Close the eyes. Take a big breath in through the nose. Hold it at the very top. Sip in more air through the mouth. And exhale, Shavasana. Extend the legs out in front of you, arms out by the sides, head down on the mat. If you prefer to take a seated meditation, you know that's always a good option. You're welcome to do that instead. Whichever one will bring you better stillness today in this moment to close your practice. And even though you're quiet, you might feel the inside of the body settling from all those poses, shapes, twists, turns, everything we explored physically today. If you're on your back in Shavasana, start to find some movement in the hands and the feet. Then reach the arms overhead, coming back into a stretch, waking up again. And you'll walk the feet in, bending the legs. And roll over onto your right side. Cradle the head on the arm. Just lie here for a moment, eyes closed, spending some time in the transition out of your Shavasana, hanging on to some of it for the rest of your day. Take a deeper breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Use the hands. Bring yourself up to an easy cross-legged seat, coming to your meditation seat where we'll all join. Eyes still closed, sitting up tall. Bring the hands together in front of you. Maintain the lift of the heart as you bow the head, taking a moment to honor and acknowledge your heart and spirit, as well as everyone around you. Bring the head back up, blink open the eyes. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your practice. Hope you all have a great day.